Hi, I'm Alicia. I'm actually part of our marketing department here at Paradiso Insurance, and we are actually doing a fun new podcast that will talk about insurance education for our clients as well as our customers, and we'll also be going over different community events that's happening local to Stafford Springs as well as around our area. And today I'm actually joined with Chris Paradiso, the owner of Paradiso Insurance, as well as Hillary Palmberg, the manager of our personal lines. And today they're going to be discussing how you can prevent pipes from bursting in the winter, as well as measures you can take with your insurance to make sure that you are covered correctly, whether you're a homeowner or a business owner.
Welcome everybody. We're going to start today and start talking with Hillary is our manager of personal lines. And we've had a recent bout of very cold weather. On record, they say in the last 100 years, it's never been this cold this long. And we got a lot of phone calls. A lot of phone calls on burst pipes, water sewer backups that have frozen, along with here in Stafford in the local area. A lot of people have wells. Wells are actually freezing. So one of the first questions I have for you, Hillary, is could you explain why it's important to understand your homeowner's policy with all of these broken pipes where some people are covered and some people aren't? So maybe you could just take a quick second to educate.
Definitely. So it's extremely important for everyone to thoroughly review their own homeowner's policy, their business building policy, as well as any rental property policies, because at the time of purchasing them, you may have wanted to get a lower premium, and if you didn't look closely at the document that it was written on, you could have gotten a lower coverage. Not just for the dwelling itself, but what you're actually specifically covered for, like burst pipes, lightning, things like that. So it's definitely really important for you to sit down with a licensed agent, walk through the policy page by page, or even just confirm, do you have freezing pipe coverage? Because some people might not have it.
Last thing we ever want to have is somebody not understanding their coverage, having a broken pipe, and then realizing they don't have coverage. Right. And it's happened. And hopefully it's not happening with people that are insured with us here at Paradiso Insurance, because it's very important that we're looking for people who want to be educated on their homeowners policies. We want to make sure you know and understand what is covered and what isn't covered.
Right.
Could you give me a quick example? And you may not know out there is a huge difference between a DP1 and a DP3. We're getting into insurance lingo that we don't really want to get into, but we just want to give you a quick example. What is one thing that might be excluded off of a DP1?
A DP1 is a very bare bones policy, whether it's for a homeowner's policy or a dwelling fire, or like we even said, you're building for business. And it does not cover any freezing pipes. There are a lot of exclusions on it. It truly is really only like lightning kind of, and it's less the price, less the cost, but you're really also cutting out very important coverage.
The key factor that we are doing this podcast is for education, so you understand the policy. It kills me to hear everything cheap, 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 cheap. We want the cheap. I want the cheapest. Because what happens with the cheapest is most likely you're going to be cutting coverages. Cutting coverages, especially at a time that we've had such freezing cold weather. And we hope that when times are good, people don't ask these questions. And insurance is really a commodity until you use it. It's just a piece of paper. It's a promise. The last thing we want to do is not have that promise and not have you properly covered. Not just here at Paradiso Insurance, but whoever you're purchasing your insurance from. Take more than 15 minutes. You're worth more than 15 minutes. 15 minutes is not nearly enough to understand your coverage. Mm-hmm. The one thing I promise you here at Paradiso Insurance is when you call in and you talk to somebody like Hillary, she's going to take the time to educate you. It is very, very, very important that if you have that question, whether it's earthquake coverage, which is not on standard homeowners policies. Remember a few years back in Washington, Connecticut, a lot of people don't even know that there's such a town. It's a small little town. They actually had 3 cracked foundations and not one of them were covered. Most of these people didn't even realize that you could have earthquake coverage on your home. So cheap does not mean better. Cheap can be very expensive. And I'm not saying we want to sell you the most expensive policy. If you know and understand your policy and you want a DP1 and you're okay with the exclusions, that's fine, as long as you know and understand your policy. Another question that's been popping up with these broken pipes is, what is my deductible? We like to talk about deductible, and maybe you want to just tell them the difference between a 500, which is almost non-existent anymore, 1,000, 2,500, 5,000, and why higher deductibles make sense.
Definitely. So the higher the deductible, the lower your premium is going to be usually on a homeowner's or dwelling fire policy. The standard nowadays is $1,000 deductible, which is excellent. It provides, that's what you come out of pocket for, and then anything above and beyond is what a homeowner's policy is going to cover after that, depending on what's covered. Now, when you have a $500 deductible, and if you have $800 or $1,000 worth of damage, that means that you're coming out of pocket $500, and the rest is the homeowner's insurance. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, because if you file a claim, then the premium, your actual policy may increase next year and over the course of 3 to 5 years. So you definitely want to make sure that if you file a claim, you speak with a licensed representative first and you walk through what makes financial sense. Does it make sense now when it's not going to make sense in a couple of years from now? And you just want to overall look at everything. Depending on your deductible, if it's a $2,500 deductible and your overall loss is substantial, it's, a $5,000, $10,000 loss, that's a big hit for someone to take.
Not very common, or I should say, very common that people say, and it's hard when someone calls in with a $600 claim and they have a $500 deductible, and we recommend that they should just pay the $600 out of pocket. And I understand people buy insurance just as I buy insurance. I don't like paying my premium. We pay a premium, but homeowners insurance needs to be looked at differently than it was looked at even 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
When we have a claim, we need to understand that the purpose of the homeowners is really to cover us for major catastrophes, not to cover us for a $600 or $700 claim when we have a $500 deductible. If you have a $1,000 deductible, you're putting in a $1,200 claim. It's not popular nor is it comfortable for us to have to say that, because here you're paying for the insurance and you're expecting. But at the end of the day, it's costing you more money over the 3 or 5 year span.
Yeah.
For example, here in Connecticut, very common, if you have 2 claims this year or 2 claims over the last 18 months, what happens? Not only are you almost guaranteed to be canceled, you're then sitting possibly in the state pool or a high risk pool, which means you're going to be paying a substantial amount of premium. So that $600, $800, $1,100, $1,200 claim, let's use a homeowner's claim when we really need it, when there's a fire or burst pipes. We're seeing some of these burst pipes come, which I don't know if people realize, but we had a burst pipe here.
It was a mess.
In the last 48 hours, and I have to tell you, you're talking a couple hundred gallons of water, and you're talking a mess. A lot of people say, well, what would you do? Well, it was pretty easy. I called the plumber, got the plumber in here, and we paid out of pocket. If I had a fire, it would be different. It's substantially more money. At the end of the day, it might cost me $2,000, but is it worth it for me, even with a $1,000 deductible, put that claim in? No.
Yeah.
I highly recommend on homeowners, even to, and Hillary does this, you're great with customers, about educating people from $1,000 to $2,500. On a $1,500 claim, do you really want to put it in? You have to analyze your situation. Out here in Stafford Springs, we have what is called protection class 9 and 10 in some cases. A lot of people may say, well, what is that? Really what that is that we live out here without fire hydrants, volunteer fire departments. We are extremely blessed to have great volunteers with our local fire department. I praise them. We cannot thank them enough for all they do. But the insurance aspect, because they're not paid and because they don't go through the training that maybe in Hartford they do, because that's their full-time job, it's a little different. So the insurance companies say, because we live out in the woods, you're in a higher protection class, which simply means you're going to pay a higher premium. And when you have a claim, it's harder to find a replacement, especially if you're having continuous claims. So highly recommend a $2,500, nothing less than $1,000. At least take the time to analyze. $2,500, you're seeing in the average case, you're seeing some significant savings up to $100, and sometimes more on a larger home. So it does make a difference. Can you give a quick synopsis or a snapshot of a recent claim that a client called in, which didn't really come to mind, but when a lot of people don't think about sewer and water backup. Maybe we could tell our audience what sewer and water backup is, what's the cost, it's pretty standard cost, what it covers, and what's recently happened just in this past week.
Yeah. So water sewer backup it could be included in a policy endorsement, which is, special bells and whistles that you add to your policy, or it could be built into the policy automatically, depending on what the licensed representative is showing you. And, so the premium can vary. It can be, as little as $6 up to $60. Usually it's not really much more than that.
Is that a month?
Nope, that's for a whole year. So
Whole
spread
year.
it out. When you're looking at it, it's pennies on the dollar for the coverage that you get. And we recently had an inquiry about a loss where the actual pipe from the house out to the road, the sewage had, the whole mixture had frozen. And when material freezes, it can expand, it can back up into the piping. It actually backed sewage into the house, into the basement and into the downstairs bathroom. So, not only do you have to worry about thawing that pipe properly with licensed people like plumbers and electricians, you also then have to do the remediation, that nasty cleanup. So, cleaning up the drywall, the flooring, making sure everything is back to your house and you can live in it once again.
So once again, we're going to get back to the question of dealing with a licensed insurance professional, because at least analyze. I'm not recommending everybody buy it. I'm not,
Right.
because not everybody, some people want to assume risk and want to take risks. You want to take
Right.
risk, no problem. But is it worth $60? That's what you
Right.
have to, and only you can analyze. I'm not saying that sarcastically. I'm saying that there are people out there that say, for $60, I'll take my risk.
Right.
And there's other people that say, for $60, why would I ever take that risk? If you're talking to a licensed agent, at least they're going to analyze and go over what coverages are actually there. Who would ever have thought, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you 15, 16 years in the property and casualty game, that I have heard that the sewer line freezing where they had a backup, but we also haven't had the
Right.
cold, well over a week of this very, very, very cold weather. So
Right.
very interesting that we get these interesting claims, and we are very happy to report to you that our insured was covered.
Right.
The debris removal is not cheap. We're removing fluids, bodily fluids.
Yeah.
It's not a pretty, it's not an easy job, and then we also are getting somebody licensed to be able to come in and do that. And then you're moving on to making sure the pipe thaws. And if the pipe doesn't thaw and cracks, now we have a bigger issue, right?
Right.
So very important to at least understand the coverages on that. Could you, as several people have called in and we've given some advice, maybe go over a couple ways to prevent pipes from bursting?
Sure. So a few of the easy ones, if you have, kitchen sinks that have plumbing on the outside walls or bathrooms, you can leave the cabinets underneath the sink doors open, leave the faucets on a slow trickle. That can help. It's not guaranteed, especially with all the weather, but those are certainly some options. Then you can also get some different insulated piping that can be installed on the outside walls.
Absolutely. You can wrap your pipes.
Yep.
You could talk to your plumber. You can also just make sure you're using the right space heater if you're going to be dealing with space heaters, because once again, fires come from these space heaters.
Right.
We had a fire from a space heater recently, and where the space heater is positioned is first and foremost, because if you're putting a heater next to paper and it's right on top of it, it's only a matter of time that it's going to catch on fire.
Yeah.
So space heaters do help. We just need to make sure we're purchasing the right space heater and make sure we're placing the space heater if we're using a space heater in the right spot. There's also, you can wrap your outside pipes, even though they're in the house, but they may be on the outside wall, with an electrical lining, which you can talk to your local plumber and or electrician, and they could probably give you some great advice on that. Highly advise you to at least look at these options, look at your insurance options before you make decisions. And if you want to read more about how to cover your pipes and protect your pipes along with coverages, at www.paradisoinsurance.com. We have a great blog that was written last week,
Yes.
and a lot of education there. So hopefully you take a couple minutes to head to www.paradisoinsurance.com and be able to read a great blog on how to prevent pipes from bursting. So wanted to ask you a couple more questions before we end today's show. Is when a pipe bursts, my question to you, it really is, how does that affect the insured, and what should the insured do first? What would be your recommendation?
My recommendation, I would turn off that water source if I can.
Yep.
That way it'll prevent any further damage, any further piping. And I'd call a plumber right away. That way they can get in there, assess any damage. We can clean up the water as fast as we can. Then you're gonna have to take a look at the flooring and the drywall area and the molding, just to make sure that everything is dried out. You don't want any water sitting. You don't want any, excess moisture in there that can cause any mold or mildew,
Absolutely.
because that can happen.
It's very important, but I will also tell you 2 other quick tips. Please, if you're insured with us, you call us immediately.
Please.
It's our job to help you get a hold of the carrier. We will get a hold of the carrier. We'll get a claim number. We will call a remediation company. We will make sure you're taken care of. We are not an agency, and I don't care if you're insured with us or not. If you're not insured with us, make sure you reach out to your insurance agent and ask them, if we have a claim, what do we do? The agency should state, call us first so that we can help you through the process. We can get things started, we can get things moving, we can get things forwarded a lot quicker than you just calling and kind of being left there with a claim number and not sure what to do.
Right.
We like to proactively partake. The other thing you could do, insured with us, I would highly recommend you download our app.
Right.
You can communicate with us through our app. Our app is, whether you have an Android or an Apple, does not matter. Our app is free. That 4-letter F word I love, which is free, and I hope you love it too. You can download it. It's very, 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 very easy to use.
Yes.
You can click one click of a button. You can email us, call us, report a claim. If it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you
Yep.
have Travelers, State Auto, Kemper, whatever carrier you have, you can literally click one button, click claim, and bam.
Yes.
You can literally be communicating with a claims adjuster, along with being able to take photos. And the photos will be date stamped and time stamped for your protection right into the carrier. Very, very, very easy. So with that being said, we hope that these tips were helpful. We hope that the education on insurance was helpful. And we'd also like to talk about a few community events that are coming up in our area. Arts on Main in Stafford Springs on Friday, January 12th at 6 p.m. Traditional spaghetti and meatball dinner is at Grace Episcopal Church on January 13th from 5 to 6:30. Once again, that's a spaghetti dinner right here in Stafford on January 13th from 5 to 6:30. And last but not least, there's Crazy Hat Night at Stafford Cidery right here on Main Street. A lot of fun. Whether you like cider or not, I can promise you a lot of fun. There's music. It is a happening place. January 20th from 5 to 10 is Crazy Hat Night right here on Main Street in Stafford Springs at the Stafford Cidery. We hope that you enjoyed this, and we hope that you join us here at some of these local community events. And sounding out from Chris Paradiso and Hillary. Thank you.
Thank you.